When we went up to northeastern Canada to bring you a close-up look at the voyage of the Canadian Empress, we were thrilled to be able to take a long and very close look at St. Lawrence Cruise Line's owner, Bob Clarke, simply because he is a man who will not take no for an answer, as you're about to see. And there's a lot of people working for that company who are glad he never did, including a lot of us here at Global Passenger Ships. It must be wonderful to be Bob Clarke. Look at him sitting there all alone in the Grand Salon on his own cruise ship, the Canadian Empress. 108 feet long, 32 staterooms, a modern classic in the tradition of the old Great Lakes steamers that ran more than 100 years ago. Bob Clarke even had it built as an exact replica of the ships of that time. She sits quietly here at the dock with her owner reading inside. But earlier today, traveling mostly full all summer long up and down the length of the St. Lawrence River in eastern Canada, Bob Clarke owns St. Lawrence Cruise Lines, a company he launched back in 1980 to provide river cruises on the St. Lawrence River. The Canadian Empress is his pride and joy, and it should be. He has to think about it every day, even from his office in Kingston, Ontario, remembering how he and his wife dreamed up the company from their home right on the river.
And we spent a lot of time on the river. And there's such, a lot of the St. Lawrence River and the Thousand Islands is very nostalgic. There's lots of old cottages, 150-year-old cottages and stuff. And you couldn't help but think about the overnight cruise ships that used to be there. By the mid-30s, 40s, the governments were building highways everywhere for General Motors and Ford. You build cars, we'll build your highways. And so the automotive really took over. And in 1949, there was a serious fire on the Noronic in Toronto. And these things were tinder boxes. They had 3/4 inch of paint on them so much because it painted all the time.
Right.
And when they caught fire, they couldn't put them out.
Fire has been the death of 1,000 ships, and the passenger liner Noronic burned in Toronto, Ontario, killing 100 people in September of 1949. It was the end of the age of wood, and 30 years later, Bob knew to launch St. Lawrence Cruise Lines he would need a beautiful aluminum ship, and he would need to go it alone because river cruises were thought to be dead. Did people immediately around you think you were crazy?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Bob, you can't do this. Yeah, well, you just watch me. And, you know, if I had known the regulations were so tough, had I known in advance, I probably wouldn't have gotten into it. But I got into so deep with my feeling, with my emotions for it, knowing what I was going to do, I said, oh yeah, I have to keep going.
Moving ahead with his ship meant conforming to regulations that were nearly impossible.
Canada has the toughest regulations on the planet Earth. It has the longest coastline of any country on the planet Earth. And it has the smallest shipping fleet on the planet Earth.
Because the regulations are so tough?
Well, there's two things. The unions were really a big number on this thing, and the regulations are tough, really tough.
So, to meet those regulations, Bob Clarke went to German & Millen, Canada's biggest marine engineering firm, who designed and built the Canadian Empress, along with Bob.
They made me an honorary architect. Because they said they've never had an owner so involved as I was.
Yeah.
But I'd draw pictures all weekend and then go down there on Monday and say, well, I think I want this and this.
Bob Clarke knew that he needed a fireproof ship, so the Empress is all aluminum with a small amount of hard maple that virtually will not burn. It even has wool carpets which don't burn like man-made fibers. The mattresses, curtains, everything is fireproof. Even the beautiful tin ceilings that are seen throughout this ship, they look like the inside of an old 19th century drugstore, and they are fireproof. Bob even got the company in Missouri in the United States to go back into the tin ceiling business just to supply his ship. And every passenger comments on the design, which looks 100 years old. Everything Bob Clarke has done with his ship has worked, including keeping it in business through the terrible recession of 2008, 9, and 10. He watched American river cruise companies go out of business.
Well, in 2009, at the beginning of the year, there were 20 ships in the United States like us here in Canada. And 14 of them never came out. So I said, well, that has to augur well for me. If they're not sailing and I am, then those people want to sail or cruise, then they'll come with us.
Yeah.
Well, if that happened, it wasn't a flood for us. We got enough to keep us going, sustain the company. If we want to keep it going, we will. We're working very hard to go, and we'll keep it going. But that was a sad thing, And I don't know why it dove so much in the United States, why it took such a dive. In Europe, they can't get enough boats.
European river cruises are booming. St. Lawrence Cruise Lines is strong, and in the United States, the business is weak, with no real answer for that. But it is a difficult business to operate and difficult to finance. You need a beautiful, safe ship, a good advertising campaign, a good money partner right from the start. Bob had to borrow money from a bank back when that could even be done. And still, it was not easy to launch this company.
I had a third of the money. The bank loaned me a third, and the Ontario government loaned me a third. And the banker was the hardest guy to get through. Easy to get through the government and all that. But the banker was hard. And he pushed. I got turned down 6 times. And on the 6th time, he said, Bob, for the last time, no. Wow, that's what I want to hear. He said, you didn't understand me. I said, yes, you said for the last time, no. So I'm going to ask you one more time. He said, oh my God.
So on that 7th try, Bob got his money.
Welcome aboard the Empress. We're heading to Quebec City. Would you like to join us, sir?
Yes, I would.
And St. Lawrence Cruise Lines came to life, carrying passengers all over the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Hello, nice to have you aboard. Hello, welcome aboard. You're most welcome. Hi, how are you doing? Nice to have you aboard.
Through the islands, through big, wide open channels, through the cities and into the small towns of English and French-speaking Canada. It's a wonderful business filled with exciting trips and destinations, as you will see here at GPS Films. And as for that boss, no retirement in sight for Bob Clarke.
Oh, I can't imagine ever retiring. I have a hard time with Sundays, That's why I'm the bell ringer at my church. Keeps me busy. Yeah, no, I'm a workaholic, and that's fine. Right now I'm on a binge. I'm not changing it.
And why would you retire when you can sit in the Grand Salon and read on your own ship anytime you want?